Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Self-Care for Women's Health event. I'm Destiny, the media strategist for Seeds of Healing. We are an HIV awareness and advocacy organization whose mission is to deconstruct myths that perpetuate HIV stigma. Our work especially seeks to eliminate disparities for Black women living with HIV. This event will be shared on our SoTime platform as well as posted on our YouTube channel. Attendees are welcome to drop questions in the chat box and they will be shared at the end of the event. Please feel free to ask questions and write comments in the chat box throughout the program. We will also be using Mentimeter as a way for everyone to engage throughout this event. So you can click the link in the chat or scan the QR code that will be posted. A quick introduction to our speakers today. We have Dr. LaShonda Wallace, who is an advanced practice nurse who has practiced an array of population-focused specialties throughout her career. She enjoys community health education to promote wellness and advocate for social change. LaShonda is the founder of Seeds of Healing. We have Ashley Daniels, who is a Southeastern North Carolina native with a background as a community organizer in environmental justice, social justice, and grassroots electoral politics. She has served on the Mayor's Clean Energy Ad Hoc Committee and volunteered with Communities Connected with Success in Columbus County and the Cape Fear River Watch Advocacy Committee. She is the owner of Speak Life Consulting and works part-time at the LGBTQ Center of the Cape Fear Coast as the operations and programming assistant. Today, we also have our Seeds of Healing interns with us, Cameron and Ellery, who will be helping along with the chat and or comments throughout. And with that, I will turn it over to LaShonda.
Hi, good afternoon. So happy to have you all here with us today. So today is the first day of Women's History Month. This is a time when our nation celebrates the contributions and achievements of women. This year's theme is Women Providing Healing, Promoting Hope. For this reason, we will share our compassion for the tireless work of women during the pandemic and recognize ways to promote healing and hope on this day. So I'm going to turn it over to Ashley, and Ashley is going to share some facts on history for women.
Hi, everybody. Very happy to be here today with Seeds of Healing and with Dr. Wallace and everyone on the panel. When we were talking about what was relevant to this conversation about self-care, we thought it was necessary to take a look back in order to really appreciate where we are. So just sharing just a few historical facts with folks. In 1920, the 19th Amendment was ratified, declaring that the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. And this was just over 100 years ago. Women were not permitted to open a bank account in this country until the 1960s. That was roughly 60 years ago. Until 1972, the passage of Title VI of the Higher Education Act, women only accounted for about 6% of medical school graduates due to legal discriminatory admission processes. This was only 50 years ago. In 1973, in the case of Roe versus Wade, the US Supreme Court declared that the Constitution protects a woman's legal right to an abortion. This was only 49 years ago. And lastly, women were not allowed to get loans or credit cards without their husbands until the Equal Credit Opportunity Act in 1974. This was 48 years ago. So we share all of that because our trends shift so quickly that it's easy to forget that many of the freedoms that we appreciate today and that we exercise today were only realized in very recent American history. And there's sometimes a correlation between the legality of a thing and this social acceptance. And so when we understand that it was a very recent history that women got financial independence in America, we might not judge ourselves so harshly when we're not where we want to be financially. When we recall that the right to determine if and when we give birth was only made legal 49 years ago in this country, we might better understand why some of us struggle so much with boundaries. The ones who came before us fought for our right to live freely, And remembering our history allows us to remember those fights and that struggle. But it also reminds us that self-care is more than vacations, and it's more than scented candles. Self-care is committing over and over again to unlearning the stories and behaviors that tell us that we're not good enough. It's also an intentional and lifelong commitment to prioritizing a new way of being, where we declare for ourselves that our lives, our bodies, and our voices matter. And it is always possible for us to create a better future for ourselves. So again, very thankful to be a part of this conversation about self-care at a really important time.
Thank you. Thank you for taking us down that walk of history, Ashley. It just brings us to this moment of understanding why self-care actually do matter. And so I'm just going to reiterate, why does self-care matter? Well, self-care actually helps us relieve and it actually protects us from the effects of stress embodiment. And what is stress embodiment? Stress embodiment is the cumulative physiological dysregulation that is caused by the psychological stress that we deal with each day. It increases our cortisol levels. It causes chronic inflammation. It makes our muscles tense. It causes anxiety. It contributes to our depression and sleeplessness. And as a result, this is why we suffer from ailments such as depression, where I mentioned depression, which is actually what comes first, right? The cart or the horse. But we have ailments such as acne, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, as well as cancer. Poor self-care, it also has a liability. It causes us unhealthy relationships because we have role strain. We actually perpetuate poor health behaviors, emotional eating, again, poor sleeping habits. And then most importantly, it brings us to this moment that we delay self-gratification. We deny ourselves because most of the time we are caring for others. And so we did a poll and we asked some questions before you arrived today to find out, tell us more, what reasons do you find self-care to be challenging? And so let's see what you all had to say.
So earlier when we sent out these questions, we got a lot of the kind of same themes. So I'll just read through these so that everybody can hear. We've got, what prevents you from practicing self-care? My busy schedule, not enough time, daily life events and not enough time, guilt taking time from family, time caring for children, tired, money, imbalance and over prioritizing. We've got somebody who said, I work 2 jobs, in school, married, and have grown children and grandchildren. I have to plan for self-care due to multitasking. There's a lot of multitasking. We've got a lot of the same themes here. Time, poor time management, not making time to have self-care. Work and family obligations, always feel like after all this is done, I don't have time for myself. And at that point, I just want to rest. And then having enough time and energy. So as I think we can discuss a little bit further why we might be seeing all those similar themes.
I'm hearing is, what are you hearing, Ashley?
You know, I'm not a betting woman, but if I were, I would say time seems to be a consistent, consistent theme.
Yes, time is a consistent theme. And with that being said, I know that many of you are here. It may be your lunchtime, right? And I know that during the time of COVID, people are not only going to work, they're not only caring for their family, then they're showing up for virtual gatherings in the evening. And so, again, we're grateful that you joined us for this moment in your day. Hopefully that we will do our best to maximize this moment together. All right, next slide, the next question.
So something else that we wanted to kind of see about our audience is the self-care that they've witnessed from parents or guardians, and seeing that role as a child. And we can see that 80% of our participants said that they did not witness a role model of self-care when they were young in their developing years, and only 20% of our participants did.
That makes sense to me. I don't think I started hearing the word self-care until like I was in my early 20s, mid 20s. And I think that like for me personally, up until that time, millennial, yeah, I think that the character traits and like the way of spending time was like work ethic was really prioritized, and like your value and like yeah, how people saw you and how serious they saw you was like, is this person serious about work? And so it feels like care for yourself was seen as a luxury a lot of times when I was younger. It wasn't seen as something that you should prioritize.
I'm curious to know, are any of you familiar with the Superwoman syndrome or the Superwoman schema? I know that as a melanated woman, that in my culture as a Black woman, you know, being strong, being a protector, and a provider, it is nothing but routine to work, to care for the children, to go to the community meetings, to show up at church, to be the head of boards at the community center, to be volunteering, to be cooking for the pastor, to be cooking for the husband. So, and with that, it was like if you was not doing that, then it was like frowned upon. But it was like, you know, it was like you invited that lifestyle and you know, not realizing that it was a stress. But fortunately today we are reclaiming our time, and that is actually what's bringing us here today. So it's a learned behavior.
Dr. Wallace, something that came up for me when you were speaking was like the saying like, you're too young to be tired, or like you haven't worked all day, how are you tired? And that's what came up to me. You were saying like it's actually frowned upon if you're not doing all these things and you're not checking all these boxes.
Yes. Sister Benita said that you're basically the backbone of the family. Sister Benita, you're the backbone of the community. Yes. Today, it's so joyful to wake up on a Saturday or a Sunday morning to feel the sun in my face from the windows. But I remember as a child, my grandmother would say, the sun is going to dry the grease out your blankety blank, right? And I you know, I had to feel guilty because I was sleeping beyond a certain time of the day. But now I pray for the opportunity to sleep a little late. So yes. Okay. The next question.
All right, so kind of in those similar themes that we were talking about earlier, when we asked about naming something that would help you sustain self-care, or what your idea of self-care is, we see that the biggest word here that was submitted time and time again was time. We also see energy, scheduling, and your schedule just ties right back into time. Travel and leisure would be a great way to sustain self-care. Reciprocal relationships. That's an awesome answer. I would love to know who said that. Community, time management, money, of course, friends, space, and whether that's personal, whether that's physical, mental, emotional, adequate finances, tying into the affordability, discipline. Absolutely, it takes discipline to care for yourself and carve that time. Commitment. We have spirituality, patience, norming. I'm not familiar with that term. I would love if the person who submitted that could drop in the chat kind of like what they mean by that.
Norming?
If it's norming. And then a helpmate.
Mhm.
So we've got all sorts of ideas here.
Yeah. I'm not certain what norming means to anyone that's here, but if someone wants to share, please feel welcome to unmute yourself or to drop something in the chat. But I know that in our society, we're quick to judge or criticize things that should be normalized. And again, waking up a little late on a Saturday is criticized, but you know, sometimes we are worthy and we deserve some grace, and sometimes we can normalize some things that are typically criticized. But if anyone else wants to share, please, please do.
I would
when it
also
comes-
be, go
Mhm,
ahead.
mhm.
No, I would also be curious, like if someone wants to share, but I would also be curious to know if like folks who have joined the call, if even if you didn't put one of these up here and it resonates with you, if you'd want to share about that.
So I didn't share one of these, but I would love to share my personal experience. When I saw reciprocal relationships up there, it really resonated with me. I was in a relationship for a few years where I had a job that I had to wake up very early for, and my partner always stayed up very late for their personal activities and their work that they did, and they always wanted me to be up with them, and so I would be feeling obligated, like I had to be up until 2 in the morning, 1 in the morning, or even later sometimes, to fulfill my role in my relationship, spending time with my partner, and then turning right back over and trying to wake up at 5 in the morning for my job. And it wasn't until I left that relationship and worked on myself and kind of got back into my schedule that I realized that if I had the relationship I'm in right now is very reciprocal. My partner understands my boundaries and my need for my sleep and my need for my own time, and he is able to carve that out for me in his portion of the relationship. And just having that one aspect of my life change to where I'm not being expected to stay up for somebody else has so drastically improved my quality of life because of my sleep.
Wow.
So I saw that and it immediately said, those reciprocal relationships where you give and you take with each other's personal boundaries can be so beneficial personally. So that was a really great answer that I saw in there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the next question.
So what area of self-care do you desire the most growth? I love this question, and I love to see all of the answers that everybody put in. So we have exercise and movement, personal time, skin and exercise, applying it to my life, taking time for myself, time alone to write in my journal, spirituality and healthy relationships, taking time out for my mental health, personal development, and learning how to make self-care a priority.
Yeah.
Time's still a really consistent theme.
Yeah, time is a consistent thing. And it's just so interesting how, we're being taught now to reclaim your time and, don't allow people to, and I think actually, let me just take that back. I'm learning to be more intentional about reclaiming my time. Let me speak for myself.
Yes, ownership.
What'd you say?
I said yes, ownership.
Ownership, right? And that's still a work in progress because I think that others may experience this, but sometimes a lot of our time is taken up because of space and responsibilities that have nothing to do with what we have put on our own plate. or what I put on my own plate. Let me use the I statement.
Can I add to that?
Yes, add to it, please.
Yeah, I appreciate, I mean, I was joking with you when I said ownership, but like, I do think that a really valuable component of self-care is taking ownership of like, in what ways have I not been a good steward of my time, right? Like, folks who have different lifestyles than me, who are parents, or they're taking care of an elderly loved one, or they are in relationship with a spouse, like those are different sets of challenges, and those require a different set of navigating. I'll speak for myself personally. I catch myself every now and then. It's like, but why are you on social media? This does not feel gratifying to you. This does not add like to your development as a person, but here you are again, right? Or if I've said yes to a meeting across town on a day that I'm really busy, or during a week that I have a lot of other obligations, I'm like, you actually should have said no, or you actually should have rescheduled this. And like, this was not the best way to steward your time. So I have been kind of in this reckoning with myself lately about like, yes, there are the things that need to be done. There are the things that need to be moved. And there are these spaces that like, you actually could just be a better steward of your time.
And
That's been a
no
helpful
is
thing.
a full, yes. And no is a full sentence.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Ashley.
I'd love to add something if y'all don't mind about like my personal experience with like everybody's talking about personal time. And for me, I've struggled in the past really with seeing free time as like a positive for myself, because I think for me as a college student, the first thing I ever heard going into college was you should never be either you should never be bored, or you see free time as a thing of, well, I'm not doing enough elsewhere. And so realizing, I can be doing enough elsewhere, and knowing that limit, and then seeing personal time or free time as sort of a benefit to myself, and something that can allow me to be better in areas when it is time to do work. I kind of have come to that realization that using free time can make me work harder, a better worker when it is time to go back and do like work and stuff like that.
Absolutely. A thing that I hear often these days is like, just because my time is free doesn't mean it's available. And I think that's a good orientation for us to have for ourselves. Wanted to lift up a comment in the chat from Eliza. Completely agree about social media. Not healthy for me to spend too much time on social media, and there are better ways to spend free time.
Yes. You know what? Have any of you ever had experience with someone say, what are you doing next week? Or something, and you hesitate about sharing that you have free time because you know that they're going to commit you to something. And so that's that experience of free time, and then not knowing when to say no, or knowing to say no to something that does not bring value to your space and time. So that can also be a drain.
And to your point there specifically, I have 3 jobs, and I am a full-time student. And so I have very little free time, just like most of the people here. And I have, for the last few years, had to start dedicating myself as a scheduled priority in conversation too, and never be afraid to say, oh, next week I've actually dedicated some time to XYZ. Spend time with myself is a great answer in itself. I've actually, on Friday, I am spending a few hours with myself, taking some time to recoup, focusing on my self-care. And in my opinion, and I think it should be universal, that is just as valid as, oh, I've got a shift that starts at 3. I've got a shift with myself that starts at 3.
Yeah. All right, so now what we're going to do, we're going to take a moment to share a few tips that can be practical self-care practices. And what we want to do, we want to encourage you to incorporate these into certain areas of your life that will promote healing and hope. And these tips can be used indefinitely, and hopefully you'll be able to also share them with others. And just take notice that in the middle of the wheel is self-awareness. And when it comes to self-awareness, we always want you to be mindful and center yourself as the priority to achieve the benefit of any and all of these areas in your life. So I'm not certain if we will have the opportunity to get to each spoke on the wheel, but we will do our best because we, again, want to be respectful of your time. Again, we do know that some people may be utilizing their lunch time. All right, so let's go. Spin that wheel. Ooh. Communication and relationships. So what does the benefit to communication and relationships is to have clear and effective communication, nurture mutual respect, help set boundaries, and improve quality of relationships. So let's see, do we have any tips? I know that we have some tips to share, but feel welcome to any of our guests to unmute yourself and to drop in the chat any tips that you may have for healthy communication and relationship building. So one tip we have is to give praise and credit when it's due. Always to be kind and acknowledge others. That can go a long way personally and professionally. I've learned recently that being nice and being kind are completely two different things. And I've been very intentional about being kind instead of always trying to be nice.
That's a whole word.
Yes, yes.
I agree
yeah, I
that
got things to say here for sure.
please do. Please go in there.
So I feel like the first part, or not the first part, but like the first month of this year, I had like a whole epiphany on boundaries. And like, I think that in the past, I would really notice myself getting frustrated or getting like agitated if I sensed that a boundary had been crossed. And I had this moment earlier this year that I was like, actually a boundary hasn't been crossed if you haven't communicated that boundary, right? Actually, a boundary hasn't been crossed if you yourself are not clear that that was even a boundary at all, right? And so a lot of the ways that I thought about boundaries in the past was like, okay, boundaries require courage, boundaries require hard conversations. If you're not being courageous and having the hard conversations, you're not really respecting boundaries. And it's like, the back work to that is that like, what actually happens first is you getting clear with yourself. Like, what do I want? What feels good to me? What feels like it's out of alignment with what I want, right? And it's okay if it's a different answer today than it was yesterday, if it's a different answer than it was last year. But what do I want? And then after determining that with yourself, then like giving other people the space to be like, hey, this is what I've determined, and this is what's important for me, and this is like the way that I would like to be respected, right? And if those things aren't happening, we can't fully expect people to respect our boundaries because they haven't been communicated. So yeah, that's something that came up for me about boundaries. I think that for the last few years, I've been getting a lot more clear that like most of us don't grow up with the like, again, right, like free time and self-care, like the thought of like having boundaries is not something that all of us had the luxury of growing up to feel like we were worthy of.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to add, not being vague and being indecisive and knowing my yes is my yes and my no is my no.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
I think it's
Another,
important. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, did someone else add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I think it's important to understand some people that grow up in traumatic households don't understand what boundaries are and may be um, what's the word? Maybe angry when you set boundaries
Mm,
with them, you know. So
that is true.
Yeah, that brings us to another point that um, one of the tips that we kind of compiled was specifically when setting boundaries, and if something's bothering you, to bring it up calmly and in a timely manner. And I think using neutral terms when you're setting boundaries to establish that rather than emotional language is so important for those exact reasons. I know that so many people in general, not just women, are uncomfortable setting boundaries because they're not sure how to communicate their boundaries effectively, which can be made worse by being in a situation where somebody might not be emotionally stable, or if you know, as you brought up, coming from a traumatic household or background or current situation, and navigating those neutral and effective, clear terms can be intimidating, and it takes practice with yourself, like Ashley was saying, before you can enact them in your personal life.
Yeah. There's something called imago therapy that I actually had the opportunity to experience, and it helped me with communication and relationships and being able to navigate not understanding how to use words effectively, because yes, words can be triggering, and if you have a history of witnessing violence or experiencing violence, sometimes you remain in situations because you feel stunted, or you avoid speaking up for yourself because you have a fear of something going to happen. And so you actually remain paralyzed. So that was my experience. But one benefit from imago therapy was to help me navigate relationships. And I was able to look at my past to see how it was impacting my present. And so that's one consideration why therapy is always very helpful, to help you heal and then grow as you move forward.
May I add one more thing on this
Yeah.
whole move?
Mm-hmm.
For most of my upbringing, I looked at conflict as like a departure. That like if I get in a conflict with you, or if I disagree with you, then it's over between us, or like our relationship will change in a way that is negative. And like it was later in my adulthood that I began to see conflict more as an opportunity. And I think that for me, one way that I try to look at conflict, and like healthy conflict, right, is that like if you are willing to be in committed, respectful struggle with someone, that means that you believe in their ability to be a better person. You believe in their ability to develop as a person. You believe in their development in their future. And so it's a type of trust in what's possible for them. And for me, that's really rooted in love, right? As opposed to like a fear that like, all right, I gotta fuss with this person. And so that has been like a useful tool, like that perspective about what conflict can be, and what conflict can make possible has been really helpful for me.
Thank you, Ashley. All right, what's on the spoke now? Where we going? All right. Exercise and physical activity. So the benefits of being physically active, moving your body and exercising, we're not talking about running a marathon, right? But it supports overall physical health and improves personal self-image. Does anyone want to share a practical tip? You can unmute yourself or use the chat.
I have a practical tip that I helped, put this presentation together, but this isn't one I shared because this one is really a personal thing for me that I just drastically improved my life. So during the pandemic, I was mostly home. I was immunocompromised and couldn't be out in public in the first year. And I was living home in a shared living environment. And I was just like, I need to do something that is out of the house. I'm working from home. I don't have the opportunity to be moving. What am I going to do? And I invested in an Audible subscription for myself as like, this is a portion of self-care that I'm going to budget for. And I started walking, and I call it, or my housemates called it like my hot girl walk. And it was just like, you go on your walk and all you do is you either listen to music or you listen to a book, and you give yourself the space to say, I'm not going to think about what I have to do at work. I'm not going to think about what I have to do at school. I'm just going to walk, and I'm going to listen to something fun that I want to do for a minimum of 15 minutes. But at that time I had a lot more free time. So I could walk for hours a day. I missed those days. But now I do it for about 15 to 30 minutes, at least once a week. And not only does it help my physical health, I'm getting my steps in, I'm getting to see my neighborhood, I'm getting to be outside, which is so good for my mental health. But I'm also carving out a space where I am creating a positive emotional environment for myself as well. So that is my best practical skill.
Yeah.
It literally changed my life.
It really helps to get some air, especially if you've been indoors and need to take your mask off.
Oh yeah.
Shaquana said, yes, walking every day and getting a watch and count your steps help motivation. Destiny, she loves hot girl walk. If in the event that the weather is not good, or maybe your environment is not, the best place to walk, if you need to move your body, I would encourage you to get 2 equal size items. Like it could be 2 bottles of water. It could be 2 canned items. If you're watching TV, you can move your arms above your head. It can create some movement, get rid of, these things that grow after the age of 40. But some sense of movement, but you can do that during every commercial if you're watching television. But some sense of physical activity and moving your body and your joints, again, is really helpful. If you happen to have any type of body aches or cramps, and maybe it's uncomfortable to walk, if you can get into a bathtub with warm water, you can move your legs consistently for a few moments in some warm water. Not only will the warmth relax your muscles, but you can move your knees and your ankles for a time for a certain, you can put a timer on, but to set some type of time where you can actually be active. Satu said exercising outside helps connecting with nature and the divine. Most certainly. Most certainly. And I would also say that if you have the opportunity, every state have like a state or natural park, and we sometimes do not, and I'm not encouraging this to be like something you do once a week, but occasionally, if you don't have the opportunity to do it with a family, but even if you want to do it by yourself, a couple of times a year, you may want to visit like some type of natural preservation where you are and experience nature on a trail so that you can be physically active as well.
Can I say something in reference to physical activity?
Of course.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amina. If you hear a ding, I'm working, guys.
Is that Amina? Oh, that's Amina Daniels. Ashley, that's Amina. That's my sister, guys.
What I have been utilizing recently within, I say, the last 1 or 2 weeks, not every day, but ever so often when I get the energy, because I feel like, I'm gonna be honest, I was exercising a lot. I had a trainer in North Carolina, but now I'm back in New Jersey. I don't have that trainer, and I'm struggling getting back to the exercising. So, and I feel sometimes it's a sense of I can't think of the word, but like, sometimes when we think of exercise or physical activity, we think, like it needs to be structured. It needs to be a certain amount of reps. It need to be a certain amount of, sit up, whatever the case may be. And I have been utilizing turning on music and just dancing. And so a couple times this week already, I just been dancing. Not only is it just movement that helps with, moving your body. It's a form of exercise. It's a form of mental health, give you mental clarity, as well as also connecting with the divine, moving your body, movement. That's, it's a form of active spirituality. So I don't know, for whatever reason, I've always loved music, but I don't know, the last couple months, I've like really been in really listening to a lot of music. And so I just been busting out dancing. Some R&B. Yesterday I started dancing to a little bit of rap. So I don't know. It's just, it helps and it brighten up my mood and, and then cut it off and you're ready to finish your day, however it may go. But
I heard her say she busted out. You heard her.
So for me, I just feel like when I hear the word exercise and physical activity, I'm like, oh boy, that means I need to, lift some weights or something like that. And it really doesn't always have to be that. And so just making it fun may make you open to doing it even more, even more often and more times a week. And then next, you got a little regimen going and some pounds then dropped off. So, and your steps get in, right? So,
that takes
example.
Thank you, Amina. And that takes us back. Ellery said, put the earplugs in. So, all right. So what's next on the wheel?
So I think we have time for about 1 or 2 more if we're going to want to stay under our lunch hour. So let's see. Let's check out personal development.
All right. So personal development, the benefits, it improves employability in an ever-evolving workforce. Self-awareness of strengths, it gives you self-awareness of your strengths and your weaknesses and invigorates a sense of purpose. Yeah, you do not want to be the last one to know what your weaknesses are in your place of employment. So yes, personal development. Do anyone have any tips for personal development?
I like to just say having a great work ethic would help personal development because you feel good about yourself and confident.
Having a good work ethic. Give us what's a good work ethic? Give us one example.
Having a good work ethic for me, I say, is to be at work, and not find a reason to call out. I think I went maybe like the last year without, or two. Actually, it was 2 years with no call outs. Just anticipating the needs of coworkers, and doing tasks without having to be assigned to do them. And just like I said, staying true to yourself and just being disciplined.
So Haas, can I do you for a moment?
Yeah, sure.
So Sister Haas, thank you for sharing with us that you did not call out for over a year. Sister Haas is a nurse anesthetist, and during the time of COVID-19, for you to not call out for over a year for what we've been going through, we applaud you.
Thank you.
And that is outstanding. And I know you didn't ask for that.
I did.
I know you didn't, and I know how shy you are, but I just wanted to take that moment because we started off talking about what women have been doing throughout the pandemic. And that's a prime example, so I could not allow that to escape us.
Thank
And
you.
I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. All right.
This is not so much a tip as an observation.
Mhm.
Two women on this call have mentioned the divine, right? When we're talking about exercise in nature, we're talking about dancing. But when I think about personal development, I think for me, what comes to mind is like, there's this quote about like, we're the closest to God when we're creating. And when we're learning more and more about like what our skills are and how we can deepen and broaden our skills, and like what's more possible for us as a human, there's something divine about that. There's something divine that's unleashed in us when we learn more and more about what we can do, right? And so again, like similar to like our relationships with other people, if we are in the habit of saying like, I'm gonna learn this new skill, or if I'm going to like take this class, there's something about that that's a belief in a better future for ourselves, right? Like I'm not gonna be comfortable in this place because I know that more is possible for me. And I think that's how I see personal development.
Thank you, Ashley. A couple of other more tips were networking, dedicating yourself to attend a new community event or a social gathering, or an organized organization meeting to connect with people and places. Reach out online via a social network to connect with groups. It can be a mother group, it could be young professional, it could be a group for retirees. Someone also shared to do mock interviews with yourself. It could be a television interview. Do something that you've never tried before. It does not have to be a job interview. But these are other opportunities for personal development. I know that there were a lot of opportunities for virtual trainings that were at no cost throughout COVID. Local libraries have a lot of no cost trainings and personal development also that are also resume and portfolio builders as well.
Rebecca, I see you have your hand up. I would love to hear what you have to contribute.
Thanks. When I think about personal development, I have like two friends in mind right now, actually three, and they're women who decided to take a chance on themselves, and they launched businesses. And when I think about personal development, I think about people who decide that they're worth betting on and that they believe in what they have to offer. And so I really want to like uplift these women who have stepped out and decided that they're employable, and not only employable for someone else, but for themselves. And so Ashley Daniels is one. Letty, I can't remember her name now, Letty Gore. She just announced that she's getting into consultancy with her historian, like as a historian. And my friend Rhonda Sekhmet Ra, she decided to go out and do spoken word full time, and they're just inspiring. So, yeah.
Thank you. All right, I think we just have opportunity for one more, and then we're going to wrap this up. It's been an awesome time. This is a beautiful will, Ellery. Thank you.
Thank you. I spent a lot of time. I had a vision. I needed it to come to fruition. So we've got stress reduction and self-care for our last, which is, I feel like, just the perfect one to end on. So.
Yeah. So stress reduction, it increases emotional capacity, improves sleep and immune function, and reduces personal and professional burnout. And I think it basically summarizes everything that we have already shared and discussed for today. But there are a few tips that you can practice at home or where you are, that you can incorporate into your daily lifestyle. And if there's anything that you want to share, please drop it in the chat, unmute yourself. We can just, spend some time sharing some tips now. Anyone?
So I saw journaling before bed,
Mhm.
reading before bed, and putting the phone away. That is an excellent one. Do
Mhm.
folks want to come off mute and share any of the things that they're dropping in the chat?
So I have one fun thing that kind of ties back to something we were speaking of earlier about the divine and moving your body. One thing that I do to practice self-care and stress reduction, I haven't done it in a while because they haven't been offered, but there is a yoga studio on Oleander Drive that offers, it's called Goddess Yoga. And it is a yoga that is like $5 free to, or open to community members. You have to be a member of their yoga studio, and it's in like a candlelit room, and the instructor is just, and it's just full of women, and all of the yoga poses and movement are about connecting with your femininity and your body, and it's such a beautiful way to connect with your womanhood and reduce your stress. And I've really enjoyed that in the past. It's a yoga studio right next to the Port City Java in Oleander. I wish I had the name. I'll find it before we leave.
I've been there before. I know exactly the yoga studio you're talking about. I wanted to lift up some things that folks have put in the chat. Because there's one point that I really would like to make before the end of this call. So Ms. Bonetta said, speak affirmations over yourself before the day begins. Hansatu, am I saying the name right?
Hansatu.
Hansatu. Journaling before bedtime can help reduce stress, right? So like, going back to the theme of time, because the theme of time was such a consistent answer across everyone's responses around why they don't practice self-care. And one thing that comes up for me is like, not so much the action that I do all the time, but the intention and the way that I do a thing. So like, a daily shower can feel like self-care if I'm not like just like, all right, I have to take a shower, let me put my clothes on. But like when it's like done with intention and like spaciousness and like if I'm like the word that people use is mindfulness, right? Like if I'm noticing this is how the water feels, this is how this particular soap smells, this is the sensation that's happening in my body right now, this is me like using this particular lotion. These are the clothes that I'm picking out. This is the fabric. And just like being aware and being in my body instead of following my mind into the other 5 places that I have to go later this day, right? Like, this is what the sun looks like coming through my window. Those things too are self-care. And so the thing about like the affirmations, that can take us a minute. That can take us 3 minutes in our day to say, my intention for this day is this. The way that I will speak is this. And the way that I want my interactions to go will be this. And just verbalizing those things sometimes allows us to bring ourselves back into the moment, back into what we desire for ourselves, and the reminder that we have ownership over our lives. I wanted to share those things.
Thank you, Ashley. One practice is breathing. If you haven't had the opportunity, on the Seeds of Healing YouTube channel, we do have a breathing exercise that you can do that it will not take more than about 5 minutes of your time, but you can always practice it over and over again. But you can do breathing in groups. You can do breathing with a breathing coach. We do have some other links that we can share with you. Ashley, thank you. Ashley actually introduced me to, it was a virtual breathing. What is the name of it, Ashley? Because I don't want to.
Black Girls Breathing.
Black Girls Breathing. And these women from all over showed up to just be on virtual space together, breathing, humming, listening. And it was very soothing and relaxing. And there's no perfect way to breathe, but actually when you do take the moment to take a deep breath and expand your lungs and to sit still, lie still, stand still, and ground yourself and reduce your heart rate, you will feel the benefit. So that is also another way to do self-care. And you can do that in the morning. I always tell those that I care for to do it before you take your blood pressure. And you may see a dramatic difference in your blood pressure. If you're monitoring your blood pressure, may have high blood pressure.
Actually, one of my professors is a doctor of medicine, and before all of his exams, he leads all of his students through breathing exercises, because there have been studies done that support higher grades when people have the stress reduction from just simple breathing exercises, just like the ones that Ashley and Dr. Wallace have shared.
So we've definitely enjoyed this space and time with you today. Thank you. We want you to continue to subscribe to Seeds of Healing. You can follow us on YouTube, on our Facebook, on our Instagram pages. If you subscribe to our Eventbrite, any upcoming events, you will receive the notifications. We will edit this video and save it as well so that you can have access to it later. But most importantly, we want you to enjoy not only the rest of Women's History Month, but to take care of yourself for the remainder of your life. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Ellery. Thank you, Cam. Thank you, Destiny. Today's production could not have been possible without you extending yourself. So I hope that you all take care of yourself for the remainder of the day and the week. And thank you all for showing up and contributing just by being here.
It was great to be here. Thank you.